Hi everyone, today I wanted to go ahead and do a review for Big Driver and Riding the Bullet, and they both are Stephen King movies, or Stephen King books, that were adapted into movies. I actually picked this up at Walmart during October. I can't remember if this double feature was $5 or $7, but either way it was a really good deal. I have a feeling it was $5. I don't think I would have picked it up for any more, but I still think it was a really good deal. So first movie I watched was Big Driver, and I had actually never heard of Big Driver before. A couple of actors I did recognize right away were Maria Bello, and then later on we see Joan Jett. She makes a sort of cameo in the movie. Big Driver is very interesting to me. It's about a woman who is coming back from getting to know her fans in this little town, and basically she goes down this shortcut, and you should never take shortcuts. Even when people who are familiar with the area give you the idea that this is the best thing to do, you should never ever take shortcuts. Basically, she ends up in a horrible situation. Anyway, like I said, it's about an author, and Maria Bello plays the author. Her character is super interesting. She kind of talks to herself, and she talks about talking to herself. And I always find it really interesting when Stephen King writes about writers, because it's kind of like he's opening a window into like what his life is like or what his fears are. So yeah, that is my basic review on it. So the spoilers are starting now for Big Driver. Go ahead and go watch it or pick up this double feature at Walmart, and then come back and watch the rest of my review. After Maria Bello's character, who is the author in the story, goes down this shortcut after leaving a book signing, getting to know her fans a little bit in this sleepy little town, she ends up getting a flat tire. It's like one of the oldest tricks in the book, where there's something across the road and you get a flat tire, and it's intentional. So she gets in this really horrible situation, and there's this guy that she's trusting a little too much, and he just definitely does take advantage of the situation. The scene of the man attacking her just made me absolutely sick to my stomach. It's really hard for me to watch. I can't even, just to imagine to be in that situation is just, the whole thing is just appalling. Anyway, so the scene lasted a long time, but I understood the director's choice on why he did it. She ends up being dumped. The person thinks that she's been killed. Once she's been disposed of, she wakes up. She's kind of having this internal dialogue. Who do I call? Who do I tell about this? Everyone's going to know. What is everyone going to think? And it's sad that people have to feel that way, especially when they're a victim of a crime. She ended up going back home, just keeping quiet about the whole thing. There were some other girls in this area that she was dumped at, so she knew she had to do something, because these people were absolutely evil. It was really, really good storytelling. In the story, since she's an author, she brought up this point when she was at the book signing, that she would talk to herself, and she would have her characters talk to herself too. So she had almost like she had multiple personalities talking to her throughout her day. Sorry about the dogs. So she talked about how she had multiple characters talking to her throughout her day. As she's going through this whole process of dealing with the situation and deciding what she's going to do, she's talking to this sweet little old lady. This little old lady is one of her characters in her book, and one of her books, and her books are mystery books, and these little old ladies are basically in a knitters club, and they solve mysteries and crime. So this little old lady is talking to her and saying, okay, I'm here for you, I'm going to help you through this, and she ends up going back, and she's like, okay, I got to figure this out. How did this happen to me? So she goes through, and you're thinking, well, is she imagining something? Is she making too much out of like the people that she was talking to? Is she assuming too much? Or is she just got this really great way of being able to solve mysteries? So you find out she's going to go take on everyone who did her wrong. I thought it was a very well written story. Every angle is sort of taken care of, and there's really interesting characters. They're very quirky, especially the little old ladies knitters mystery solving club, and the way Maria Bello delivered her character as the author. It was just a really great movie. I was really satisfied by the ending. The second movie I actually watched in the same day. I'm gonna check and see, are we still good? So the second movie I actually watched it in the same day. This movie is called Riding the Bullet. Basically, in the beginning, there's this guy, and he's an artist. He's having his own internal conflicts with death. He's having to deal with whether he's enjoying life, if he's ready to move on, if he's ready to not be a part of this world anymore. And so basically that's what this story is about. In a nutshell, that's what it is. If you haven't seen it, you should probably go watch it now. I'm going to talk about the rest of the movie and what I thought of it. So in this story, the artist decides that he is going to kill himself. He does try. His attempt fails. His girlfriend finds him and is actually surprising him with a birthday party. He's having to go through this whole decision whether he is enjoying life or not. He's going to go to this concert with his friends. It was a gift from his girlfriend. It seems like they've parted ways since he's recovered from his attempted suicide. He gets this phone call when he's going to this concert. It's from someone that's saying his mom had suffered a stroke and she was in the hospital. He decides he needs to go see her. He's not going to be the horrible son and not go see his mom in the hospital. So he goes back, and in this whole way, he has to go back. He has to hitchhike. And as you know, hitchhiking can be very scary, sketchy. There's lots of different people along the road. This story was set in, I believe it was the 60s, so it was a little more common at this time, hitchhiking. So he's hitchhiking all the way home. And the thing about this movie I think is really cool. It reminds me of Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, where he gets into the cars and he's going on his adventure, and you know the whole scene with Large Marge where she's the creepy ghost at the end. That's kind of like what this movie's about, but it's like extended because he's meeting all these different strange people, and they all have something to do with the underlining theme of death. So he gets into a car and there's this old man, and you can tell that there's something not quite right with him. And he's even talking to himself, and he's appearing as himself in the backseat, like talking to him as his conscience, like, what are you doing? Get out of this car. Which I thought was kind of funny. The old man, basically, you could tell he was on his way out. He was near death, and that's what he was noticing too. He's like, I need to get out of here. Something's wrong with this guy. He ended up getting out, and and then when he glances back at the guy is talking to his wife in the car, and she's an older lady. And when he looks over there, he's like, did I really see that? Because in the car they had been talking about how his wife had passed away and all of this other stuff. So he saw her there and he was surprised. So he wasn't sure if he was seeing a ghost talking to this old man or not. Anyway, so he decides to take another ride. And every time he takes a ride, it seems like it's progressively getting worse or stranger. He eventually ends up in a car with a very interesting man. Previously, before him getting into the car, he walks through the cemetery. In this cemetery, he sees the name George Staub. Staub? Yeah. George Staub. He reads for some reason that name sticks out to him, and he reads the inscription, which was pretty interesting, and it all involved the theme of death as well. I believe his inscription, I think it says it on the back or on the front. No, it doesn't say it. I think it said something about like, too soon. I'll look it up. His inscription on his tombstone is, well begun, too soon, done. And I guess, as I was doing some of my research, I guess Staub means dust. And so, as you know, when someone dies, the saying is ashes to ashes and dust to dust, basically. So you came from dust, and dust you shall be again, eventually. So that's basically the connection between what Staub means. Staub apparently means dust, and I think it said Greek or something like that. Anyway. He gets into this car with this guy, and it's this really, really pretty car, and it's beautiful red, and it's just gorgeous. And David Arquette is actually George Staub, and he's pretty interesting to see in horror movies. Anyway, I like seeing him in horror movies. What happens is he's getting in this car, and they start talking about this roller coaster ride that he wanted to get on when he was a kid, but he ended up, chickening out at the last minute, and his mom was there, and she was mad at him for making her wait all that time because he had been bugging her about it, and he just chickened out. And so they were talking about that. And George, he's an interesting character, and he seems like a really nice guy. But then our main character, the artist, starts to realize that this is the same guy that he saw that was dead in the cemetery. He's like trying not to let him know that he knows that he's dead. And this whole time, George obviously knows that he's dead, and he's riding with this dead guy in this car. And so he eventually, reveals that he knows. they go through this ride, and George basically says, well, you can either go on the death ride basically with me, or you can send your mom along with me. Obviously, he's terrified, but he's going through this internal dilemma about, well, I did try to kill myself, and how can I offer my mom up to this guy? So anyway, he chickens out again, and he offers up his mom. And so he says, take my mom instead. Everything ends up working out. He ends up with this button from this guy, and it says, I rode the bullet. And he kind of holds on to it as sort of like a memory. He's going to the hospital. He's made it to the hospital. He's hoping that his mom is still alive, but he's kind of like, well, I did give her up, so she's probably not alive anymore. And as he's going to the hospital, he's expecting the worst, and he's playing out all these scenes in his head, which is another really cool way that they shot the movie. Is he's thinking something, and then it plays out in front of you, so you're having to pay attention as you're watching the movie. That am I in a thought, or is this actually happening? Which is really cool. He ends up going to the hospital. He sees that this guy, George, as I would like to think of him as Death, going up to see his mother in the elevator. And he goes in, he sees her, she seems to be fine. And eventually, at the end of the movie, he's older, and he's talking about how he got married to his girlfriend, that they had split ways in the beginning of the movie, and he ended up, already getting divorced from her, and he had this, he had that, and then his mother had passed away, peacefully, when years later, in front of the TV. Yeah, so it ended okay. I just thought it was an interesting way for Stephen King to sort of talk about death. Yes, it's been something that's been on my mind, so I feel like it's been something I could connect to. Every day that I live, I feel like I am riding the bullet. I feel like I'm in a line to get on to, the ride of my life, basically. So, and that's exactly what Stephen King wrote about, and I felt like it was such a genius idea to write about that. Yeah, every day, here we are, we're in this line, approaching death. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's just going to happen, and we're waiting this whole time. So we haven't rode the bullet yet. We're going to, and in the movie they even say everyone rides the bullet, and it was just an interesting idea, and I felt like it was just well written, well directed, and the acting was amazing. So I definitely recommend going to watch these movies. If you have seen these movies, it's a great thing to add to your collection, especially with such a great deal at Walmart right now. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching.